Thanks, Chairman Grassley, for holding this hearing to look into large-scale theft of retail products that are then sold to unsuspecting consumers, often on online marketplaces. This is not a new problem. Back in 2008, I met with Home Depot. They told me the story about a drill that they sold exclusively that was being found for sale new in the box and at a discount by sellers online. It had to have been stolen some part of the manufacturing or sales process. And it wasn't just tools. This was and still is happening in all kinds of products, all kinds of stores, including cosmetics, electronics, clothes, over-the-counter drugs, toys, and as the chairman said, food and other things. I remember when the CEO of Walgreens came in to see me, based out of Illinois, and I said, now why do I have to call a clerk at your drugstore when I want to buy underarm deodorant so they can unlock the shelf and I can buy the underarm deodorant? Are these so precious that they have to have special surveillance and guarding? And he said, the fact of the matter is retail theft takes these things in volume and sells them in volume. And of course, it's not the individual that's likely to be the one to sell it. It's some sort of an operation, which we're going to talk about today. This is a problem that affects everybody. Higher prices, lost jobs, and lost community investment when shops that can't keep up with the rising cost of theft are forced to close their doors. I've worked on this issue for a long time. As chairman of the committee years ago, I held a hearing on cleaning up online marketplace to protect consumers from stolen, counterfeit, and unsafe goods. Not long after Congress passed my Informed Consumers Act, bipartisan bill I introduced with Senator Bill Cassidy, Republican of Louisiana. This law requires online marketplaces to collect, verify, and disclose information about high-volume sellers who offer new or unused consumer products for sale on the platform. Remember that Home Depot drill that I talked to you about earlier? When they found out that it was being sold online and clearly had been stolen, they contacted the online operation and said, this is a stolen product, there's no doubt about it. And the online operation said, so what? That's not our responsibility, that's somebody else's. Well, this bill, the Informed Bill, changed that. The Informed Consumers Act is guided by three principles: verification, transparency, and accountability. If someone's going to sell a large volume of goods online on a marketplace, they should tell the marketplace who they are. Home Depot couldn't figure out who was selling these drills. The online operation wouldn't identify their user. The sellers should be verified. Second, if a product sold online turns out to be a fake, stolen, or dangerous, consumers should be able to report it and find the seller. And the marketplace must ensure the seller can't just disappear and pop up later with a new account name. Third, if a consumer orders a product from one seller online and the order is actually filled by another company, the marketplace should let the consumer know. I'm sad to report to you that despite 2 years that we passed this bill, the Federal Trade Commission has literally dropped the ball on enforcing the Informed Consumer Act. It's been more than 2 years since this law went in effect. The Federal Trade Commission hasn't even promulgated regulations in 2 years to implement it. The FTC has received hundreds of complaints regarding violations of this law, but how many enforcement actions has this agency taken? None. Zero. This is unacceptable, and it must change. The Federal Trade Commission has to step up and enforce the law that we passed and the President signed. In the meantime, state and local governments have stepped up their efforts. In May, in my home state of Illinois, Cook County Regional Organized Crime Task Force brought together more than 100 law enforcement agencies and 30 major retailers for a crackdown that resulted in hundreds of arrests across 28 states. That is a success we must build on. Federal law enforcement also has an important role to play, but we must acknowledge this administration has announced different priorities. Instead of combating crimes like I described, the Trump administration has diverted critical resources toward the president's mass deportation agenda. Homeland Security Investigations, better known as HSI, plays a leading role in combating criminal networks and organized crime, including organized retail theft. But under this administration, HSI has been diverted toward rounding up immigrants, many of whom pose no threat whatsoever to this country. According to one recent report, and I quote, HSI supervisors have waived agents off new cases so they have more time to make immigration enforcement arrests. One veteran agent said, No drug cases, no human trafficking, no child exploitation. It's infuriating. Instead, he said, HSI is, quote, arresting gardeners. These are not the actions of an administration serious about combating crime. Diverting federal resources endangers Americans and leaves us less equipped to target and disrupt criminals like those organized in organized retail theft. We have to have an open and honest discussion about the role of the federal government in reducing organized retail crime. I look forward to that dialogue today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.